The storm has been building for 3 days, and Lisa crosses the northern ridge anyway. Not because she is brave, because the goats need feed and there is no one else. There has not been anyone else for 2 years. That is simply the shape of her life now. She pulls her coat tighter and walks into the white. She almost misses him entirely. 50 yards past the second marker, something stops her. Not a sound, the storm swallows everything, just a shape off the trail, half buried, wrong. Too large for an animal, too still for a traveler making camp. She crouches down and finds a man. Broad as a doorframe, fever burning despite the ice packed solid against his skin. Wounds across his ribs and left shoulder that were not made by accident or weather. They were made by people who knew exactly where to cut. Someone had hunted this man, someone professional, someone who had not, apparently, finished the job. His eyes open, gold, sharp and ancient in a way that has nothing to do with age. They find her face, not the sky, not the trees, not the disoriented sweep of a dying man. Her face, directly, with a focus that should be impossible in someone this close to death. He says one word: don't. She does not know if it is a warning or a plea. She decides it doesn't matter. She gets her arms under him. He weighs more than she expected, and she expected a lot. She carries him anyway, one grinding step at a time back down the ridge, lungs burning, boots breaking through ice with every stride. She has never left a living thing to die in the cold. She is not about to ruin a perfect record today. Back inside the cabin, stripping ice from his skin, she notices 3 things she files under "think about this later." The scars on his hands are too geometrically precise to be accidental. His grip on her wrist, even unconscious, even fever-blank, is controlled rather than desperate. And when the fever breaks on the second night and his eyes open fully in the firelight, he does not look around the unfamiliar room. He looks at her first, like locating her is the only necessary thing. She will regret noticing that. She does not know yet how right she is. The fever does not break for 3 days. Lisa works in sustained, efficient silence, compresses changed on the hour, broth forced between locked teeth in the brief windows when he surfaces enough to swallow. The torn flesh at his ribs stitched twice because it keeps pulling open in his sleep, when whatever chases him through the dark makes his whole body fight the stillness she needs from him. She does not ask questions. She observes. The scars on his hands are not a tradesman's scars, not a farmer's. Clean lines in locations that suggest someone who knew exactly how to make them and had done it before. He positions himself toward the door even in fever sleep, not with the restless shifting of discomfort, with the trained consistency of someone who has drilled that habit into muscle memory over years until it lives below thought. When the nightmares come on the second night, and they come hard, he does not cry out. He goes very still. His breathing changes. His jaw locks. She has seen that before, in a soldier who came to her with an infected wound and refused to make noise while she cleaned it because he had trained himself out of showing pain so completely he could no longer find the switch. She adds it to the list, the list she will think about later. Then, a sound from outside. She is at the window before she decides to move. Nothing visible, just wind and tree line and the dark pressing close. She stands there for a full minute, completely still, watching the eastern path. Nothing. She goes back to her patient, but she does not go back to sleep. On the fourth morning, he surfaces properly, coherent, gold-eyed, scanning the room in one swift, practiced movement before his face settles into careful neutrality. She is already at the table with broth. She asks one question. "What do I call you?" 3 full seconds, a long time to retrieve a name that should require no retrieval at all. Arden. She sets the broth down, says nothing. She watches him wrap both hands around the bowl, carefully, controlled, managing even this small vulnerability with the practiced containment of someone who has not been cared for in a very long time. And she thinks with the flat certainty of a woman who has been alone long enough to trust her instincts. Whoever you are going to be a problem. What she does not tell him, she found boot prints circling the property line 2 nights ago. Eastern approach, stopping 30 feet from the cabin wall, close enough to confirm he was inside, careful enough not to trigger the dried branch she keeps across the path as a simple alarm. Someone came to check. Someone decided, for now, to wait. She sharpened every knife she owns. What Lisa wants is simple. For him to recover and leave. For the cabin to return to its previous quiet. For the particular solitude she has spent 2 years calibrating. Not lonely, she is precise about that distinction. Alone, a thing she chose deliberately. To reassert itself before this man-shaped disruption does any permanent damage. He is, in the first 10 days, almost cooperative about this. He takes up the smallest possible space, speaks only when spoken to, thanks her with formal courtesy that marks him, to her trained ear, as someone raised to it from birth. Quiet. Contained. She thinks, this is manageable. She thinks, I have handled worse. She thinks this with complete confidence through day 10. On day 11, he has her herbs ready before she reaches for them. She stops, stares at the small organized row, exactly what she needs, exactly the order she needs it, says nothing. He is already outside. She stands in her kitchen and feels something shift in her chest and immediately, firmly, reclassifies it as indigestion. By day 15, the gate latch she has been meaning to fix for 3 months is fixed. She notices it at dusk, does not mention it, goes to bed early and lies in the dark thinking about nothing in particular with great focused intensity. By day 19, he says something about the goats, their social hierarchy, their apparent grievances, their deeply held political opinions, and it is objectively not that funny. She laughs anyway. Actually laughs, from the chest, the kind that surprises you on the way out. He goes very still. She sees it, something in his expression shifting, like a man who has felt something move in a place he stopped expecting to feel anything. There for 1 second. Then his face settles back into careful neutrality. She files it under absolutely not and institutes countermeasures. She keeps her side of the cabin, keeps conversation functional, stops lending him books. Books create evenings. Evenings create conversation. Conversation creates the specific problem she is trying not to have. She takes on extra outdoor tasks during the hours he is most likely to say something that costs her. She goes to bed earlier. She is a professional. The situation is fully under control. On day 27, she wins. He is quiet all morning, back to the careful distance of the first week, contained, unreaching, not trying. She waits for it through breakfast. Nothing. Through herb work, nothing. Through lunch. By early afternoon, the relief is so clean it feels like stepping out of a fever. It has stopped. She catalogues her entire herb stock with extra thoroughness, repairs the south fence. She hums, which she has not done in some time. By late afternoon, she has decided with complete confidence that she has held her ground against a genuinely formidable opponent, and won. She allows herself a small, private satisfaction. She has earned it. She comes inside at dusk. He has cut and stacked firewood against the south wall, more than she needs for a week, stacked with precise economy, and is sitting at the table with her book, reading in the last light with the relaxed attention of a man entirely comfortable in his own company. He looks up. "You seemed happy today." "I was productive," he says in the quiet, direct tone of someone stating a thing observed carefully over time. "I know. You always look like that when you feel safe." He returns to the book, does not look at her again. Lisa stands in the middle of her own cabin and understands two things at once. She has not won anything, and he has known exactly what he was doing since day 11. Not strategy, not manipulation. He cut the firewood and said, "You always look like that when you feel safe," because it is simply, precisely true. Because he has been paying attention to her safety, not her defenses, and that distinction is the most disarming thing anyone has ever done to her. She sits, picks up her mending, does not look at him. Day 19, she thinks. It was already done on day 19. She mends in silence. The fire burns low. He reads until the light fails, closes the book gently, wishes her a quiet good night. Gone. Lisa sits alone with her cold, clear understanding and feels the last of her countermeasures dissolve like snow against a warm hand. She stops running after that. She simply stops moving her chair back, stops manufacturing outdoor tasks, lets the evenings find their own length. They grow longer. The conversations move further from functional. Each night she tells herself, "This is fine. I have simply decided to stop being afraid of a conversation." Each morning, she wakes knowing exactly what it is. On the 31st night, a second storm comes, smaller than the first but loud and close. They are playing cards. Her suggestion, something to look at other than his face. The fire is high. She is losing badly. He sets down his cards. "You stopped moving away. I noticed you stopped pushing." "I never stopped," he says. "I just changed what I was pushing toward." She looks at him across the firelight, the gate latch, the herbs. Day 19, you always look like that when you feel safe. And she says, "If you break my heart, I will be extremely unpleasant about it." "I know." A beat. "I am trying very hard not to." What she finds in his face is not performance, just Arden, watching her with the same careful attention he has given her since day 11, waiting for her to decide. She moves her chair forward. "All right," she says. He exhales, not triumph, relief, and she understands he had not been certain either, which undoes her more than certainty ever could. 11 days later, she wakes to hooves on the ridge. The man beside her is already at the window, standing perfectly still. And he is not Arden anymore. She can see it from across the room, the way his body has changed, the way his jaw has locked into something she has never seen on his face in 31 nights. He turns. His gold eyes find hers. For one terrible second, she sees both men at once, the one who learned her herb patterns and the one who has just remembered he is a king. "Lisa," he says. The way he says it, careful, controlled, already beginning to be a goodbye, turns her blood to ice. She counts them from the doorway. 6 riders, northern pack crest on every cloak, gold on black, unmistakable even through morning fog, professional, organized, not a search party stumbling onto a trail, people who knew exactly where to come. Arden steps outside, and Lisa watches it happen. Not a shift of expression, not a straightened spine, something deeper, like a man she has never met walking into a body she knows better than her own and taking up residence. His shoulders settle differently, his chin lifts 2 degrees. The way he occupies the ground beneath his feet changes, and she cannot explain it, only knows that the man who handed her yarrow this morning is simply gone. Someone else is standing in the cold, wearing his face. He speaks to the riders in a voice she has never heard. The riders bow, not a nod, a bow from the waist, the way people bow to only one kind of man. And a lord at the front says, "The court awaits my king." The words land in Lisa's chest like a stone dropped into still water. My king. She understands everything in the space between that sentence and his next breath. The 3-second pause before Arden, the scars, the exit counting, the nightmares he refused to make noise about, the boot prints on the property line, the professional wounds, the gold eyes that found her face before anything else because he needed to know immediately whether she was a threat. She was never a woman to him. She was a resource, warm, available, useful. She is very good at being useful. She has always been very good at that. He turns and looks at her. She searches his face with everything she has, every clinical instinct, every night of watching this specific man, looking for Arden, for the man who exhaled with relief when she moved her chair, for the man who said, "I am trying very hard not to like." The admission cost him something real. She finds careful neutrality so complete it functions like absence. Like she is a door he is closing behind him. He says, to the lord at his left shoulder, not to her, not once looking at her face. She provided shelter during the exile. See that she is compensated for her trouble. The lord nods, makes a note in a small leather book. Arthur turns back to his horse, mounts, does not look back. The sound of hooves moves down the ridge and becomes distance and becomes silence, and Lisa stands in her doorway and does not move until the silence has been silent long enough to be certain. Then she goes inside, sits on the kitchen floor, stays there. Not because she is falling apart, though something in her chest is doing something she does not have clean language for, but because getting up requires deciding what to do next, and what she needs first is to simply be in the exact shape of this. She had been right. Day 1 she had been right. Through day 26 she had been right. Briefly, completely, gloriously wrong from night 31 through morning 42. And now she is right again. And being right has never felt so precisely like being destroyed.
She catalogues it with flat precision. She was used. The gate latch and the herb patterns and the firewood. And you always look like that when you feel safe. All of it the behavior of a man in hiding who needed warmth and found it and took it and rode away the moment the need was over. She does not cry. She sits on the cold floor and is precise about what happened, until being precise about it stops feeling like it will kill her. It takes a while. Then she gets up, puts the kettle on. She is reaching for her coat when she sees it. On the table, a folded piece of paper she has never seen before, weighted with her iron compass. Her name on the front, her real name, the full name she has never once told him. Her hand goes still. He knew it, had known it, perhaps from the beginning, which means the man who spent 42 days pretending not to know who she was had known exactly who she was the entire time. She picks up the letter, does not open it, sets it back down. The kettle begins to whisper. Outside, something moves in the tree line. She stands very still and watches the eastern path. Nothing there. Probably nothing there. She picks up the nearest knife anyway. She gives herself 2 weeks. Generous. She knows it is generous and gives it anyway, because she believes in fair process, even when the verdict is already written on the wall. She recatalogues her herbs, repairs the south fence, sleeps badly, has several extremely reasonable internal conversations about the gap between a man in exile and a king restored to power, about performance requirements, about the possibility that compensated was protection, dressed in the only language available to a king speaking in front of his court. These conversations are coherent and well-structured, and she believes approximately 40% of them. She does not open the letter.
It sits on her table exactly where she left it, her full name in his handwriting facing up. She has moved it twice, once to clean, once for the compass, and both times placed it back in the same position and walked away. She is not ready. She cannot tell yet if she is afraid of what it says or afraid of what it does not say, and until she knows the difference, she is leaving it where it is. On the 15th day, she does something she has not done in 2 years. She goes looking for someone who left. She tells herself it is for answers. She rides 3 days. The fortress rises from the mountainside, stone and ancient authority, built like something that grew there. She presents herself at the gate, gives her name to a guard who does not recognize it, which is its own small answer. She waits 4 hours. A steward appears, young, apologetic in the way of someone delivering a message they would rather not be holding. The king is not receiving visitors of her acquaintance at this time. She thanks him, stays in the courtyard. Her legs have made a decision her mind has not caught up to. Then the great hall doors open. He is 20 lords deep in ceremony and full formal fur, moving with the ease of a man entirely at home in his own authority. So completely the king, so completely not Arden. For one disorienting moment, she wonders if she simply has the wrong man. Then he turns his head. People do when they are watched. His eyes find her across 40 feet of gray cobblestone, and Lisa goes completely still and brings everything she has to reading his face, every clinical instinct, every hour built over 31 nights with this specific man. She is looking for the flicker, the half-second of recognition, the micro-expression that would confirm she has not invented the gate latch and the herb patterns, and you always look like that when you feel safe out of loneliness and poor judgment. His face does not move. Not recognition, not suppression, not the controlled blankness of a man managing a reaction trying to surface. Nothing. His eyes pass her with the mild, unseeing courtesy of a king noting an unremarkable presence in his courtyard. He turns away. A lord beside him says something. Laughter moves through the group. Easy, unhurried. She cannot know if it is about her. The not knowing is its own specific cruelty. She walks to her horse. She does not run. 3 days home, mostly in the dark, eating little, stopping only when the horse requires it. The first night she lies on her back in a roadside camp and names, plainly and without ceremony, what she has done. She has killed the last alternative explanation. It is dead. Compensated was not protection. The courtyard was not performance. The 42 days were what she catalogued on the kitchen floor. She is done. She has checked her work. She can stop. She arrives home on the 4th morning. The following morning she cannot keep her breakfast down. The 2nd morning, same. She puts it down to the road, bad food, irregular sleep, 3 days on horseback. She makes plain broth, manages half, goes about her work. The 3rd morning she sits at the kitchen table and does the counting, twice, because she checks everything twice. The number comes out the same both times. She sets down her cup, looks at the middle distance for approximately 4 minutes. Then she makes a plan. She will not go to the fortress. She will not send word. She will raise this child on the northern ridge, in the cabin where it was made, among herbs and goats and pre-dawn silence. It will know the names of everything that grows within a mile. It will know which roots break fevers and which make the goats behave in ways that are objectively funny. It will be loved with the full intensity of a woman who has a great deal of accumulated love and has decided to stop being careful about where she puts it. The plan is solid. She considers it solid. On the 4th day, the rider arrives. She hears him on the lower trail and is at the window before the sound fully registers. Single rider, unhurried, the deliberate pace of someone who is not lost and is not passing through. The sigil on his cloak stops her cold. She has to think carefully to place it. Old, one of the great territorial houses, the ones Arthur had been moving against before the exile. This is not a messenger. She opens the door before he knocks. His questions are polite, thorough, spaced with the rhythm of a prepared list. Did the man who sheltered here identify himself? Did he discuss court matters? Did he leave any documents, objects of significance? Each question carrying beneath it, like a blade kept just below a table surface, the clear implication that incorrect answers have consequences. She answers in flat monosyllables, watches his face between each answer. He watches hers. The politeness is a surface they are both maintaining. He thanks her, rides away. She bolts the door, top and bottom, both brackets. She has not done that since the first hard winter. He will report she is contained, unremarkable, a woman on the ridge who knows nothing. She had given him every reason to believe that. But in the space of that conversation, she understood 3 things. The lords had been watching the ridge since before Arthur left. They had known about the shelter. They had been waiting to see what she would do next. They are afraid of what she knows, which means what she knows is dangerous. She turns from the window, eyes going, as they always do now, to the letter on the table. Her name in his handwriting, the iron compass. 5 weeks untouched. She picks it up. Thumbnail finds the seal. She stops. Because from the tree line, the eastern path where the rider disappeared not 10 minutes ago, comes the sound of a second set of hooves. Heavier, faster, not the measured pace of a man completing an errand, the pace of a man who has been waiting nearby and has just received a signal. He had not come alone. The second rider does not stop at the door. He circles. She tracks him through the window, the tree line, the eastern approach, the same path where she found boot prints 2 months ago. 3 full circuits before he rides away, and she understands exactly what the circuit means. He was not delivering a message, he was measuring distance to the tree line, sight lines, how isolated she is, how long it would take anyone to hear anything from this far up the ridge. She does not sleep that night. She sits in the chair by the door with her sharpest knife on the table beside her, and the letter still in her lap, still sealed, and she thinks with cold precision about what comes next. By morning, she has the beginning of something. By the 3rd day, she has something better. She starts asking questions. Not at the fortress. She is done with the fortress. She asks in the village, at the trading post, among the women who move through the northern settlements carrying considerably more information than they are credited with. She asks carefully, sideways, about the 3 lords, about the land treaty, about manufactured evidence, and who benefits from a king running rather than fighting. She fills a small notebook. It takes 6 weeks. On a Wednesday in the 7th week, Calla arrives. 60 years old, boots muddy from 2 days' hard travel. She sits at the kitchen table uninvited and looks at Lisa's open notebook, then at Lisa. She says, "You have been asking the wrong question. Stop asking what he did. Start asking what they did to him." Lisa pours tea, listens without interruption, the way she listens to everything, completely, cataloging, holding each piece still until she understands where it fits. The frame-up took 18 months. 3 lords, a land treaty that would have cost them half their combined holdings, manufactured evidence built with the craftsmanship of people who have done this before, a flight engineered to read as guilt, and then, the part that lands differently, they survived his restoration, walked back into the court behind Arthur's return, forgiven through political necessity, their support purchased because consolidating power quickly requires compromise. Some compromises look like justice failing quietly in a back room. The same lords sent the writer with the polite questions. The same lords sent the man who circled her property counting sight lines. Calla sets down her cup. Within a week of restoration, Arthur was told that court attention was moving toward the northern ridge. He had 2 choices: bring you inside the fortress where you would be visible and therefore a target, or make you appear so insignificant that you would not be worth anyone's effort. Silence. "He chose for me," Lisa says. "Yes." Without asking me. Without telling me, without giving me the information I needed to choose for myself. Yes. Lisa moves to the window. The ridge is properly green, first real green of the year. She looks at it without seeing it. The protective instinct is real. She can see it. Arthur looked at a board where 3 powerful men were already moving toward her, calculated that visibility made her a target, and executed the only available option with the efficiency of someone who has spent his entire life making decisions about other people's welfare and calling it governance. She can see the care inside it. She can see with equal clarity the cowardice underneath. The way keeping her safe was also not having to stand at her door and face what those 42 days had become. Both things are true. Neither cancels the other. She is not willing to let them. She turns back to Calla. Voice level, entirely cold, the specific coldness of a woman who has finished grieving and started deciding. "Tell me everything you know about those 3 lords. Names, holdings, the specific things they cannot afford to have exposed. Calla studies her for a long moment, then smiles, small, satisfied, the smile of someone who traveled 2 days in mud specifically for this. "I thought," she says, "you would never ask." They work through the afternoon and into the evening. By the time the fire burns low, they have something solid, a case built from land records, purchase testimony, financial transfers that cannot be explained by any legitimate accounting. Lisa closes the notebook. Outside, somewhere on the lower trail, a horse moves carefully through the dark, coming up, not down. He comes on a Tuesday. No riders, no crest, boots carrying the mud of the full ridge trail, the look of a man who left before anyone could tell him it was inadvisable and has not slept properly in longer than he would admit. He knocks. Just knocks, the way anyone knocks at a door they are not certain will open. She has known he was coming. Calla told her 2 weeks ago, and she has spent those 2 weeks deciding exactly what she will and will not accept. She opens the door.
The full weight of everything settles into her chest at once. 42 days and compensated, and the courtyard, and 3 mornings and 6 weeks of evidence, and the specific ongoing fact of what she is carrying, and becomes simply the truth of the situation. She says nothing. He says, "I have made every decision wrong since I left this house." Yes. The courtyard, the steward, making you appear insignificant. I told myself it was protection, and that was true, and it was also the path that did not require me to face what those 42 days had become or what I owed you because of them. I used your safety as a reason to avoid both. I am not going to ask you to weigh the protection against the cowardice. That is not a fair thing to ask. She had prepared for justification, for apology offered as settlement. She had not prepared for this. Complete self-accounting, no strategy underneath it, nowhere left to stand except the exact undecorated truth. She says, "There is something you need to know." His face changes. Surprise, then focused attention, then something raw. Nothing like the courtyard, entirely like Night 31. He waits, gives her the space to tell it. She tells him. The silence after is long enough to be real. Not a pause before response. A man sitting inside a truth and letting it land completely without managing how it lands or where it puts him. Then he steps back from the threshold. He lowers himself to one knee in the spring mud of her doorstep. Not a king's gesture, not ceremony, the specific physical act of a man making himself smaller in front of someone he has made himself too large toward for too long. He looks up at her. "Tell me what you need. Tell me what is owed. I will spend the rest of my life accounting for it, and I will not ask you to be grateful for the accounting or to make it comfortable for me." Lisa looks at him for a long time. Long enough his knee is thoroughly muddy, long enough he does not fill the silence or add qualifications, long enough for the decision to belong entirely to her, not to what he deserves, not to what generosity requires, only to what she wants. She looks at the man who learned her herb patterns, said you always look like that when you feel safe, said compensated to a lord and not to her, and came back alone in the mud, with nothing left but honesty. "Stand up," she says. "You are destroying what are almost certainly very expensive riding clothes." Something moves in his face, not relief, not yet, the careful beginning of hope, which is different, harder, means more. "Come inside," she says. "We have a great deal to discuss." She steps back. He follows. She closes the door. The three lords fall in high summer. The evidence, assembled over 2 months by a woman on a northern ridge, is presented before a full assembly of pack lords in the same hall where they watched Arthur walk back to his throne and assumed they had survived him. There is no negotiation this time, no compromise brokered in a back room. The verdict is delivered without the pause that justice sometimes takes when it is weighing survival against principle. The northern packs watch their king and understand something the Restoration had not yet confirmed. He is not merely back, he is different. Lisa does not attend the trial. She is finishing the summer planting when Carla arrives the following morning with the expression of a woman whose patience has been entirely and thoroughly vindicated. The charter had come 3 weeks earlier, senior healer of the Northern Territories, her own staff, her own budget, conditions written in her own hand that Arthur signed without revision. A formal delegation had arrived and waited in her courtyard while she finished sorting a batch of dried yarrow before coming out to read it. She read it twice, set it on the table, went back to the yarrow, finished it, picked up the charter, and signed. The delegation had looked as though this was not the experience they had prepared for. She had not adjusted for that. She moves to the fortress in late summer, her own timeline. 2 goats, a cart of herb supplies, Calla installed in the east wing before the first stone of Lisa's official quarters has been properly aired. The court recalibrates within a fortnight. The woman who hid their king for 42 days has opinions about shifter healing practices, about the treatment of human staff, about the territorial agreements that have historically disadvantaged the northern settlements. She shares them in counsel with the direct clarity of someone who has spent enough time alone to lose patience entirely for performing smallness. Some lords find this difficult. She does not adjust for that either. Arthur watches her across the council table sometimes with an expression she has learned to read precisely. The specific look of a man who fixed a gate latch once without being asked and understood for the first time what it felt like to do something purely because it needed doing and he had the hands for it. On an evening in early autumn, first cold coming down from the peaks, fortress smelling of wood smoke and the herbs she has distributed through every available corridor, he finds her in the garden and sits beside her. They are quiet together for a while, the easy, full silence of 2 people who know how to be in the same space without filling it. He says, eventually, "I think about day 19 sometimes. The goat joke. Your laugh." She is quiet for a moment, the autumn dark coming in across the mountains, blue and soft. "I knew I was in trouble that night," she says. "I catalogued it, named it, instituted countermeasures." He says, very carefully, "Did they work?" She considers this with the thoroughness she brings to everything. "For about 8 days. Then you said something about the firewood and I lost the thread entirely." He makes a sound that is not quite a laugh, but is the closest thing she has heard from him in months. "Day 27. I thought I had won." "You had," he says. "You just did not know what you had won yet." She leans against his shoulder. He rests his cheek against her hair.
Between them, arriving in the deep of winter, something is growing, made in 42 days of exile and firelight and a false name and the stubborn refusal of a woman on a winter ridge to leave something alive in the cold to die. She had not wanted to fall. She had seen it coming and named it and built countermeasures and been completely, specifically, entirely correct about the cost. She had fallen anyway, because he had been patient and present and learned her herb patterns and said, "You always look like that when you feel safe," and meant it. And some things turn out to be stronger than being right. The child arrives in January, in the cabin on the northern ridge, because Lisa had decided she wanted that, and Arthur had driven 3 days through new snow without complaint or comment to be there. It is a girl. Gold eyes. Her mother's expression when she is deciding something. Flat. Focused. Entirely certain of its own conclusions. She is looked at from her very first minute in the world like she is both a complete surprise and something that was always going to happen, which is exactly the way her parents found each other, and a thing that tends to run in families built the way this one was, not from blood or title, but from a winter ridge and a body in the snow and a woman who could not leave living things to die in the cold, who turned out, despite every reasonable precaution, to be completely unable to leave this one alone either.